Hi, Facebook. This is CNN politics reporter Tal Kopan coming to you from the CNN newsroom. We're here today to talk about Hillary Clinton's sort of right-hand woman, Huma Abedin, who has been a fixture with her on the campaign trail, but is drawing sort of more attention recently along the campaign trail as we get a lot of attention on the Clinton Foundation, which we are also here to talk about today. And it's this charity organization that's run by the Clinton family and why it's getting a lot of criticism out there in the press, especially in relation to what any links might have been between the State Department when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and the Clinton Foundation. So just as a little bit of background, and of course, as we go, please put your questions in the comments. We'll be answering them here. But as a little bit of background, Huma Abedin actually goes back a very long way with Hillary Clinton. She started in the 90s. She got a White House internship, and she has said she actually wanted to be a journalist. She was hoping to be assigned the press office and was instead assigned to Hillary Clinton's staff, and it put her in the Clintons' orbit for decades to come. And she has worked with Hillary Clinton throughout her career in the White House with President Bill Clinton's administration during her work in the Senate when she was a senator, when she was in the State Department. She worked with her as Secretary of State, and she worked with her in 2008 in her failed presidential campaign, and again this time around. She's also worked with the Clinton Foundation, and one of the things that has really drawn scrutiny is that she was sort of front and center in most of the emails that have been made public in Freedom of Information Act requests. She's sort of the point person a lot of the time when someone from the Clinton Foundation, often Doug Band, who is also a longtime member of sort of the Clinton world, would send an email asking for things, various things. Some of the ones that have come to light have included, some FaceTime for a Bahraini crown prince, asking about an employment for someone whose name has been redacted. Those requests often came to Huma, and she was the one responding. And it's not clear what actually happened to many of these requests. A lot of her replies tend to be something like working on it, looking at it, options are being sent, and kind of going forward in that way. So she was sort of handling all of Hillary Clinton's sort of incoming in that regard. She, of course, is also famous as the wife of Anthony Weiner, who's a former congressman. They married when his political star was rising, and then, of course, in 2011, he was the center of a big scandal where he was admitting to sending some sexually explicit messages and pictures to women on the internet, including one that accidentally surfaced on his Twitter account. Huma has stood by him. They had a kid later that year. In 2013, he ran for mayor of New York City. Tried to resurrect his political career, and more of these messages came to light that had happened since the original scandal. Again, she stood by him. She actually spoke at a press conference in 2013 defending their marriage, saying it was hard work, but she learned to stand by him and work through that problem. And then, of course, moving to the Clinton Foundation, and traditionally have had a pretty good rating from sort of charity watchdog organizations. But of course, the questions now coming in have largely been oriented around the donors to that organization, the Clinton State Department, and whether that was all above board. And there have also been questions about transparency for the organization. So some of your questions coming in, whether Anthony Weiner could be a liability for her. There isn't all that much new on that front. He sort of has and continues to be known for that scandal, and of course a documentary came out this year that sort of looked at that scandal. He has said that Huma was not supposed to be featured in that documentary, but she ended up in there regardless. Huma herself is not running a political campaign. She's not the one that takes questions or is sort of the face of the Clinton campaign to the media. But of course, this is something that's out there. And, Donald Trump has enjoyed using Anthony Weiner as a bit of a punching bag. Of course, Anthony Weiner being from New York and representing New York in Congress, he and Donald Trump certainly have plenty of history and have known each other for a while, as Donald Trump pretty much knows all the politicians that have come out of New York. So, it's something he has not been afraid to attack on the campaign trail when it behooves him. But it's not clear that anything new, at this point is coming to light. And going back to sort of the Clinton Foundation, there have been some questions out there as to sort of what has happened, why is this so controversial, and the interesting thing is, to date, there really hasn't been what you might call a smoking gun. So a lot of these emails have come to light and have been dumped, like I said, in FOIA requests. Thousands of emails from the State Department have been sort of trickling out over time, and they've really been poured over. And there have been these emails that are sort of like, can we money help this person, or can this person get a meeting? But it's not clear that anything inappropriate ever actually occurred. And so that's why it's sort of difficult, is both sides are sort of able to see in this controversy what they want. There are those who say, well, simply the access that was being granted and the fact that this is even the possibility that it could have been some impropriety going on is a problem. And then there are others who say if you can't prove that anything actually was done incorrectly, then, there's sort of no there. So both sides are sort of able to go back and forth with that. There's another question: how powerful is Huma? By all accounts, she is incredibly powerful within the Clintons' inner circle. She has been at Hillary Clinton's side throughout this long career that she's had, and only risen through the ranks. There's some rumblings out there wondering what role she might have in a potential Hillary Clinton White House. It could be a very, very prestigious role within that White House. She, in the 2008 campaign, was what was known as the body woman for Hillary Clinton. She was her traveling chief of staff. She was the one who, for those of you out there who watch Veep as much as I do, she was the one who was glued to Hillary Clinton's hip, the one who would try to anticipate her every need and be there for her. And then also, of course, she was the one handling a lot of these various requests at the State Department. Her emails are front and center because she was front and center. She was always working with Hillary Clinton. So she's very much within that inner circle. And another question: if the Clinton Foundation does so much good, why are people up in arms about it? And that's a really good question. The charity watchdog organizations, like I mentioned, they look at things like how much of an operating budget actually goes to the work versus overhead, like salaries. And the Clinton Foundation actually has a good track record on that regard. They say they've helped millions of people get access to affordable HIV and AIDS medication all over the world. They have a long track record that they say supports doing good work. But again, a lot of the questions are about the donors and who were the people that were giving money to the Clinton Foundation, and is it transparent? And that's been one of the biggest controversies. Is the Clinton Foundation was supposed to make all of its donors transparent and public during the time that Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. And even though many lists were published, it's not clear that those were always complete. And there were times that they were found to have omitted certain donors or lumped donors together. And so that's always claimed to be a mistake, accidental. But these questions about transparency have plagued the organization. And again, this question of whether the donors to the organization were given anything that they didn't necessarily earn, or that was sort of preferential treatment when the Clintons had political positions. Another question: why do people care about an unelected aide? It's a very interesting question. The Clintons have sort of been known throughout their career to have this, as I referred to it, an inner circle. There are a few people who have worked with the Clintons a long time and have an incredible amount of sway over them. And, there's a little bit of mystery to them because they aren't the people in front of the camera. And there have been some questions raised about Huma's background they're not founded, but that the sort of certain publications have latched onto, often in the right wing, and sort of questioned her background. And again, it's sort of this mystery and question mark that can be raised without actually any proof that anything is inappropriate. But one of the interesting things about Huma is that she was born in the U.S., she was born in Michigan, but she spent most of her childhood in Saudi Arabia growing up, and then moved back to the U.S. To attend school at George Washington, which is when she got that White House internship. And her parents ran a journal that, by all accounts, and we've spoken with people in the region who are familiar with it, was sort of a scholarly look at Muslim issues in Western world. People have sort of questioned her role in that journal, but it's been downplayed by those involved as something that's not really there. So again, sort of people looking at anything that doesn't seem transparent and trying to figure out if there is actually anything behind the surface. There's a question about whether there might be any legal ramifications for Huma. And as of now, the FBI, you may remember James Comey, publicly stood up and said there will be no indictments in relation to the email scandal. That accounted for everyone in the scandal. It wasn't just him saying Hillary Clinton wouldn't be indicted, but that they weren't recommending any charges in terms of prosecuting the case. So at the moment, it does not appear that there is any sort of open investigation on Huma in relation to the emails that have been released. And again, this all stemming from the fact that Hillary Clinton used a private email server when she was Secretary of State and maintained that outside of the sort of State Department web domain. So that's all the time we have for today, but we're so glad you joined us. Thanks for watching, and as always, follow CNN Politics on Facebook.